As we approach the general election, a group of 5,000 small business owners have published a letter calling on the country to vote Conservative. But is the letter as it seems, and does it raise important questions about the austerity programme being rolled out across the UK? I'm Stephen Payton, and you're watching Left Scotland. It's only a matter of days until the general election. The UK could face some of its greatest constitutional questions in decades over the coming months, and... What? Oh, something more important is happening. Breaking news in possibly the most important issue ever covered by Left Scotland. On Saturday, the 2nd of May, approximately 2,200 babies were born. But that isn't important, because one of them is inherently better than the rest. Spontaneous street parties didn't happen as the news that the UK has a new princess dominated all media output. As approximately 1/3 of children in the UK are born into poverty, let's stop and be happy that another child will get an exuberant life at the expense of the taxpayer, just because of who their parents happen to be. Perhaps when they grow up, they too can try to use a state poverty fund for families in low incomes to instead heat Buckingham Palace, like the Queen tried to back in 2010. Maybe she'll find a way to justify the £229 million worth of taxpayers' money that Republic estimate the royal family cost every year. And for any loyal monarchists out there about to shout about tourism, the royal family only generated £9.3 million in money through tourism back in 2012, and that was the year that London hosted the Olympics. Now that I've got that in my system, here's some actual news. On the 27th of April, The Telegraph published a letter signed by 5,000 small business owners who said that they wanted to see Cameron and Osborne continue down the route of austerity that has seen major cutbacks in public services and spending. However, it quickly became apparent that this letter from small business owners saying that we should back the Conservatives was not what it had seemed. The first thing to come to everyone's attention was that this letter was hardly a spontaneous plea from the company directors across the land. The document that was handed over to the Telegraph newspaper still had the details of Conservative Party's headquarters in the metadata. But still, it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? Because it matters who signed it. Such as signatory 1549, Tina Beloveth Powerful, who's on trial for selling fake Harvard degrees out of her flat. Or perhaps Miki Weathers, who appears 4 times on the list, or Rudolph Diesel, who appears twice, or any number of a staggering amount of duplicates throughout. And all of that before it started to become clear that many of the names on the list were not small business owners at all. They owned no shares in the companies associated with them, nor were they listed as directors. In fact, many of the businesses listed had no idea their names were even on the list, such as Aurum Solutions Limited, who requested that their name be removed from the list on the Telegraph website. There were also a bunch of charities on it who did not back the letter, and of whom even the named person of the organisation denies ever signing it. At least 7 of the signatories are actually Conservative Party candidates for this election. And it seems like the Telegraph have been removing the duplicates, but not bothering to change that it is not quite the 5,000 signatures that it originally was, leaving weird gaps in the list, such as jumping from 3240 to 3242. But what else would you expect from the Telegraph? A paper edited by Alan Cochrane, who, during the independence referendum, stated that when asked by Alistair Darling to get rid of an unhelpful column, it's not really good journalism, but what the hell does journalism matter? This is much more important. There's a link to a great piece of work by Sturdyblog below that looks at the farce that is this letter in greater detail. But there is a darker side to this still. In the UK, we are now in a position that those who run major corporations or media empires who control what stories we do and don't see have free rein to take political positions and to publish research and stories that can damage political parties, but charities and NGOs don't. The Transparency of Lobbying, Non-Party Campaigning and Trade Union Administration Act passed last year means that civil society cannot say anything that could be interpreted as being for or against any major party. So if a group comes out to say that climate change is a very, very real threat, it could be interpreted as a move against UKIP, who don't believe it's a real thing. Hint, it really is. Adam Ramsey, when writing for Our Kingdom, says that there is genuine concern amongst charities and NGOs that the act is stopping them from doing their jobs. So the Conservatives are willing to give a voice to businesses, even made-up voices, but those who are more likely to be critical of their policies have essentially been gagged. The letter raises further big questions. Do small businesses really support the Conservatives? And is the economic plan of austerity that the Tories are pushing on us working? No to both, as it turns out. A study done by Make It Cheaper found that small business owners thought that the Conservatives would be the second worst party for small businesses, with UKIP being voted the worst. A survey carried out by the Centre for Macroeconomics found that 2/3 of the prominent economists involved thought that the government's austerity had had a negative impact on GDP growth. Representatives from the London School of Economics and the London Business School said that we've seen recovery speed up only when the coalition government eased up on the austerity programme. The government's own forecaster, the Office for Budget Responsibility, has said that austerity has had a negative impact on growth. Under the coalition, we've just experienced the slowest period of growth for 2 years, with the UK economy only growing by 0.3% in the last quarter. Francis O'Grady of the Trade Unions Congress has called this the slowest recovery in modern history. When you compare how much austerity is imposed on a country with its annual rate of economic growth, it becomes very clear that harsh austerity is damaging and only slows down recovery. The economic research that supports austerity has been thoroughly pulled apart. And yet, the Conservative Lib Dem coalition pushes on with it regardless, because to them, austerity isn't necessarily what works. It's just how they believe the country should be run. That's why Cameron said back in 2013 that the aim of austerity was to make the state smaller. Not just now, but permanently. There is another way. And maybe after the general election this week, we can find our way to it. Now it's time for a short break from establishment politics as I catch up with Zarah Kitson of the Scottish Green Party while they were out campaigning at the weekend. So we're here today with Zarah Kitson, who's the Glasgow North East MP candidate for the Scottish Green Party. As you can see, we're actually in a laundrette, which is also an art gallery today. That's right.
Yep, it's part of the open access studios that's going on today, and we're in Whitehill Laundry in Denniston, and it's a project called Washing Lines, and I happen to be featured in the exhibition.
Awesome. So obviously you've got a stall down on the road. How has the campaign been going for the Greens?
Good. People have been, I mean, it's a tough election for us, there's no denying that. It's first past the post, tactical voting is really at play here, but we are out and about. We have 7 candidates in Glasgow, so for the first time in history, every voter in Glasgow's got the chance to vote Green, and people are really excited about that.
Perfect, and this really comes off the back of this whole Green surge that we've kind of seen across the whole of the UK. So this year, the Greens have more candidates running across Scotland than ever before.
Yeah.
Membership's up to about 9,000. Not just here, but also when you go south of the border, you're starting to see Brighton, where there's already a Green MP, but something like Bristol West is coming up. There's a few other seats that look like there might be more Green MPs at the end of this. I mean, where do you think this surge in Green politics has come from?
I think it's come from, I mean, certainly the referendum was really great for Scottish Greens. We had more platforms than ever before to actually let people know what it meant to vote Green and what Green Party stood for. So it took us out of being a one-issue party, which is how the media framed us before. People are disillusioned with mainstream party politics and they're looking for something different, and they're definitely seen us as a viable alternative.
Absolutely, and I guess sort of off the back of that, you're talking about the Greens surging up. In Scotland, we're seeing the exact opposite with Scottish Labour. So obviously Labour have kind of been entrenched in Scotland for a very long time, decades now. Scotland always returned majority of Labour MPs to the point I'm pretty sure where many MPs didn't even really need to do much in the way of campaigning to know that they were going to secure a majority, and some of that's changing. I mean, do you think it's really time that we sort of shook up the established order of things?
Absolutely. I think people really are more politically engaged and aware in Scotland than ever before, and because of that they're paying attention actually to what parties actually stand for. They're looking for people to be more transparent, to be more accountable, and to actually keep politicians on their toes, which I think is really healthy.
This massive surge in the Greens, now you're talking about engaging with youth politics and the role that the Greens have within that. But when you look at the current Greens, I guess, position in Parliament, there's 2 Green MSPs in the Scottish Parliament, Scottish Greens in Westminster, no one in the European Parliament, but it's completely undeniable to say that the Scottish Greens have still been a major political influence in Scotland. I mean, how do you think the Greens have been so consistently punching above their weight?
I think we have really strong policies, we have good ideas, and they connect with people in a way that connects to people on kind of their terms. And we have a lot of really passionate activists, so for the small we do have, or obviously that's much larger now, but even from before when we had a much smaller party, people are really principled and they're really values driven, and I think that people really respect that, and the way that we choose to do politics tribal, and we actually want to get things done and push for things where we want to push for progressive change and do that in a progressive way, and I think that people really appreciate that, and they appreciate our honesty and the way that we do that is part of what people are connecting to and how we manage to punch above our weight.
Absolutely, and coming into the Westminster election, which is of course next week, recent polls are showing that SNP are pretty much going to take the majority of seats, or apparently all seats, though I don't actually think that's necessarily going to happen. I mean, the feeling online is certainly that a lot of people who are supporters of the Greens are maybe going to vote tactical this time because they want to have a strong block of MPs going south who are, kind of anti-austerity or even pro-independence in a lot of ways. I mean, regardless of the outcome of this election, where there's going to be a strong degree of tactical voting, moving forward to Holyrood of next year, where of course there's renewed interest, charges kind of in place. I mean, what do you see coming for the Greens in the run-up to 2016?
Really, really exciting prospects. I think that we are teed up to be a serious part of government next year, and I think that we're all absolutely ready for that, and we're pushing for that, and it's certainly getting the sentence around the doors that is also what the public are looking forward to. People are saying that they really want to have more Greens in. The SNP kind of surge people are. I've seen a lot of people chat online about, are we moving towards a one-party state, and that would be dangerous. And I think that with sort of Scottish Labour being as unpopular as they are, we need a position, an alternative, and people are really seeing the Scottish Greens as being that opposition to the SNP in Parliament, to be a strong alternative voice that's ensuring we've got a radical progressive political voice in there. For the kind of policies that people want to see. So I think that, one of the polls that I've had is getting 15 in. Recent ones, I think we were sort of on 10%, the most recent, but some of that of the squeeze that's happening just now. So I actually think that we're set to get a really strong number of MSPs in there, and that people will appreciate having that voice to be part of the mix and to hold parties to account. The SNP, which people recognise that any party needs held to account, and they need scrutinised, and we'd be happy to be there doing that and to make sure that we have a balanced return policies that people are in favour of.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
That's everything from Left Scotland this week. Please do share, like and subscribe if you want to see these shows become more regular, not to mention tons more content such as short documentaries, interviews and spotlights on community campaigns. You can click on the link in the description below to watch the campaign video for the fundraiser I have and find out more about it. There's less than 3 weeks left to donate and every penny helps. Plus, badges! See you all next time.